to another episode of Sit Down and Think, where we get the skinny on the latest thing happening in the world of animation. Today, I'm sitting down with a few crew members in the Netflix series Dogs in Space. So, who are you people?
I'll go first.
Yeah, wait.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wiesel. I was a board artist on Dogs in Space.
I'm Tom Cantor. I was a storyboard revisionist on season 1 of Dogs in Space.
And I am Marissa Bernstell, and I was also a storyboard revisionist on Dogs in Space for season 1.
All right. Dogs in Space is definitely a series that I want to say is it was intriguing. It came out of nowhere, but it really leaves an impression with how it carries itself with like all these with the characters and everything. At some point, you would think, okay, maybe I'm wondering it might be a cute little show, but then you get deeper into it, and it's like, oh, it's that type of show that has some commentary to it. And I think that's what probably caught a lot of people off guard.
Yeah,
For sure.
That's definitely one of my favorite things about the show. I love shows like that. It's like, oh, it's so cute and happy, and it's just like, we're gonna teach you stuff though. Like, it's
deep.
Exactly.
And it's funny because like Dogs in Space. Yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just saying, I like that it like kind of calls out the environmental issues going on right now. Just like, look where we could be.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's kind of like you mentioned, like on the surface levels, like the show is just called Dogs in Space, and you're like, okay, well, it's what it says on the tin, maybe, and then you go in and it's like, oh my, okay, there's like more to this, and I think that's what really is impressive about the show in general. I think that's why it sticks with people. It's because it just has more to say than just having like cute dogs in space.
Exactly. I think that's something I very much appreciate is that it's like, yeah, you have the cute characters, but there's actually some levels to all of them and the situation they're in. You know, with the fact that it's like they are, essentially just doing the humans' bidding to clean up the humans' mess at the end of the day. Like, that's just something I was, and they're constantly complaining about that fact, which I like, yeah, you have to call that out at the end of the day.
Yep.
I think one of my favorite lines is like from the puppy episode, when at the very beginning, I think it's episode 5, and it's Garbage says, I think we should just, they're planning to have like a day off, like a day of relaxation. And he says, we should just do what like humans would do. And Kira, who's like the most jaded of the crew, says, like, what was it? Discover this, like colonize this planet and pretend we discovered it or something like that. Yeah. And like, once I heard that line, I was like, yeah.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly what I was having. When, like, once we got to Kira and everything, I was like, oh, okay. I see all of this one, and I can't pretend like I don't agree.
She doesn't sugarcoat what's going on.
Yeah, I really liked Kira's like whole plot. It was really nice, like just the contrast between her and Garbage. Like Garbage is all like loyal to the humans, and then she's like who Garbage could wind up being, like, and kind of gives Garbage a different perspective. So I thought that was like really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, definitely, most definitely. So I want to ask for each of you, like, in terms of getting into the animation industry, like, what was your journey that brought you to Dogs in Space? Go one by one for this.
Like how we like got into the industry and then got to the job, or
essentially like what got you to the industry and then what got you to Dogs in Space.
So yeah, when I started, I actually for like the longest time I played a lot of softball, and I wanted to be like a professional softball player, but then I injured my wrist, and like I would draw a lot on the side, and so like after that dream got crushed, I was watching like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and then I had this like epiphany. I was like, this is a job. People do this job. So like I was like, I want to get into animation, because I already like also like to write and stuff. So I went to like a school in Detroit. I'm from Michigan, College for Creative Studies, and then my first job was at WB on Wacky Races. And then I was at Cartoon Network on Ben 10, the reboot, the one that everybody hates. And then it's okay. I love that crew though. It was the crew makes it. And then and then I bounced around a couple other studios, and then I was on Trolls at DreamWorks as a temp board artist, and then Dogs. I like interviewed for Dogs and got that right before the pandemic. So I didn't even get to go in the studio. But and then hopped on the Dogs and just like learned about the characters and everything. And, yeah.
So I grew up in Belgium, and that is a place that is famous for a lot of comic books, and I read a lot of comics growing up, like Tintin, is from Belgium, and like the Smurfs originated as a comic book, and Asterix, which is like more of a French comic book, but like it's still popular in Belgium. So like I read a lot of comics, I drew a lot of comics growing up, and at some point I was like, I want to see I want to see the people that I draw move around and talk, and like, that'd be really cool if they did that. And that eventually led to my interest in animation. So we moved to the States like during high school for me, and I studied animation out in California. And I took a lot of production jobs. Like I was a PA for like the first basically 3 or 4 years after I graduated, because I didn't know if I didn't know if my portfolio was good enough yet. And I was just like, I should just stay with production so I can at least know the ins and outs. And then after a while, I was like, okay, I got to at some point, I got to move over. I had to make the conscious decision to stop looking for production work and like get into storyboarding. So I did some freelance work, and I just did some personal projects, and eventually the showrunner of Dogs in Space saw something that I made and he reached out to me and was like, hey, we're making a show. This is like in January of 2020. He reached out to me and said, hey, I saw something that you made. I liked it. We're making a show about dogs that go into outer space looking for new planets. And I was like, sounds cool. And then I interviewed in March, like basically the week before lockdown. So I was scared for a moment. I was like, is this still happening? And then, but eventually everything worked out, and I started out working from home. And everything was just sort of gravy from there.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess I, as a kid, was always really into art, and my parents were kind enough to foster that interest and kind of help me get into certain art programs. Like I went to a magnet school for like art for middle school and high school, where they did more like fine art kind of things, and I always liked to draw cartoons, which made them kind of like, no, don't do that. And I was like, okay, I'll do this still life and also draw cartoons when I go home and not show my teachers. So I did that, and then eventually I went to college to pursue 3D animation because, my parents were like, oh, we hear 2D art, 2D animation is kind of dead, right? Like, so you should probably learn some 3D and be a little more like, open to more jobs. And I did that, but in the back of my mind, I always really liked drawing and the storyboarding process. It took me a while to get into storyboarding, though. My 3D skills kind of brought me into games. So I worked in games for a while, which, long story short, isn't great. And so eventually I was able to, I worked at Lucasfilm for the last season of Clone Wars because it was kind of a combination of 3D and 2D storyboarding. And that's finally what got the studios to look at me and take a chance on me for 2D boarding, which I absolutely love, and I never want to go back. And as far as Dogs in Space, my first storyboarding job was actually on a show called Duncanville at Bento Box. It's an adult show, adult comedy, like sitcom kind of thing, and it was fun and I enjoyed it. And that's where I met Adam Henry, the supervising director, and he actually reached out to me later after he left and was like, hey, how would you like to do something a little more exciting than primetime animation? And I was like, how can I refuse adorable dogs in space? And I love Star Trek and animals. Like, yes, of course, yes. So that's kind of how I got there.
Ah, that's definitely interesting. Like between all three of you, like having like all these different ways of how you got into the industry, and somehow all managed to make it to this one production. Like it, it's definitely fascinating that you can all be on all these different in all these different areas, and somehow you meet for this one particular show that's about talking dogs in space of all things. And I think that's just kind of, if anything, that's kind of inspiring. I find for like a lot of people who want to be into animation to find out it's like, oh yeah, somehow you're going to find like meet up with a bunch of people who are like from around the world, even like some people can be from just a different state, others a whole different country, even. And that's I don't know. That's just always something that I found interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot too of like kind of like a who you know thing, because like I'll say like definitely after getting that first job, it's been a lot easier to get other work because it's like your coworkers kind of become your referrals. Like I forgot to mention, like for dogs, it was like my friend April is friends with Monica, who is like one of the directors on the show, and she's like, oh yeah, she saw your work and she told me to have you email her. So it was kind of like I didn't even know about dogs until my friend April told me about it. So it's kind of, yeah, it's just like, and then yeah, my first job, like I have to thank Chris Houghton for that, because he referred me to the director that was on Wacky, because I was testing for Disney TV. I had like over like 12 tests. Like Disney TV just kept sending me tests, but they wouldn't hire me. I was like, damn it. Like, come on. And then like just out of nowhere, I'm like, why? I'm like, WB is sending me a test. I was like, I don't remember reaching out to them, but I'll take it. And then I kind of lucked out that they didn't pay attention that I was in Michigan on my resume. They're like, can you come next week? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get on
Wow.
the plane. But yeah, it's definitely like it helps, like once you get all the friends like kind of going, it kind of just helps you meet more people and branch out easier. The industry is surprisingly small.
Yeah. That's like the tough thing about people who are like getting into the industry, like, because I think, I also teach storyboarding to some students as well, and that's like kind of their number one question is like, how do you gain experience if you have no experience? It's sort of that whole cycle of I can't get the job because I don't have experience, but I don't have experience because I can't get the job. But that's the thing is like people think that there's like a one specific perfect way to like apply for work and get the job, and it's like it isn't easy. Before Dogs in Space, I basically had like a 2-year period where I was like doing freelance, but I was really struggling, and I questioned myself. I was like, is this something I want to do? Like, is it worth it? And it is worth it. I mean, also like this is the only thing I'm good at, but I think it's just like, you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, networking is super important. Like before the pandemic began, I was like always trying to go to sort of mixers and stuff like that. I don't know, Sarah, Marissa, I don't know if you ever went to like the Women in Animation mixers they had going on, or Creative Society. Like they had some stuff going on there. And that's what I recommend to my students is like meet people and reach out to people. And yes, some people won't get back to you, but that's okay. Deal with the rejection now. Like, that's just something that's going to happen.
Yeah, like I was actually like, because it was like a whole year after college, like of just testing and not getting, any job offers or anything. And so I was actually working at a nursing home, seeing if I liked being a nurse, because I was like already starting to be like, I'm probably going to need a backup career, like, and I was in that freak out stage of like, I might not get in, like, and so like, yeah, I'd like work at the nursing home. I'd come home and stay up late doing like the 50th board test from Disney TV. And then like, yeah, it's scary. It's hard. It's just like, I would also recommend like when you meet, like to network, I'd say trying to network more on a friendship level. Like, don't be like kind of like pestering, because nobody wants to feel like you're like just being
You're
used.
using them.
Because like yeah, so like and you want to be friends anyways. Like you want to make friends in the industry. It's like
Oh yeah.
because when they know you personally, they're more apt to refer you than just being like, oh yeah, their work's good, but I don't know, are they a good person?
Right.
Like, are they going to be like awful to work with?
Yeah, I think that's something I've been very much trying to get, well, more or less get back into. It's like network and understand. It's like sometimes they don't want to just talk about their job.
Mhm.
They're still a person. Like, and
Yeah.
that's something you notice a lot of which it's like they're also nerds, and since nerd culture is the hot thing right now, it's like talk some nerd shit
What about
or
those?
something.
What about those Star Wars guys?
Yeah, the lightsabers and the jetties.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's good advice.
Absolutely. It's definitely a thing where it's like, because it is easy to kind of forget. It's like these are still human beings. They're not machines. Obviously, they're insane, but they're not machines. Because let's face it, like wanting to do animation, doing all those individual frames and everything, like you have to be insane. But it's clearly a satisfying job. Obviously, there's clearly a passion to it. So it's like sure, maybe you could talk about something that's animated related, but it doesn't have to be something job related. It's like, and that's always the biggest thing. It's like because it's always scary for a lot of people. It's like, do I want to? It's like, oh, people, I'm scared. Hold me, mommy. That type of mindset.
Yeah, I would always like be worried about bothering people, especially when I'd go to CTN. I was always like, and like wanting to get my portfolio reviewed. Like, God bless Sabrina Cotugno. They were very good at like every year I'd come to their booth and just like ask them, and they would review it, and then I'd buy a piece of their work as a thank you.
Nice.
Me too. I've got like 3 of their Gravity Falls poster pieces on my wall, and I love them so much.
Rabbit Falls. That's definitely a series that still lasts. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think that's a big
very
inspiration
good.
for a lot of us.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember watching it in college, just getting excited over every episode. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's not very. I mean, I found a lot of like similarities with Dogs in Space and that as well. Just like the humor and then the underlying like story. Like, and I love that so much. Like, each episode is entertaining on an individual level, but each episode does matter. Like, it's not just a one-off, and that's just so fun and like fulfilling to work on and to watch like all together.
And I think
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a really rare experience to have in animation, because we all work on shows where it's like, yeah, whatever, it's a show and it's mainly for kids, and it's like we're just doing the work, and then a show like Dogs in Space comes along and we're working on it and like we're having fun working on it, and it's just cool to work with these characters. And I think for a lot of us it became sort of like a big passion project, like just getting to work with in this world with these characters. Like I think you feel a lot of love in the show coming out because we just all really liked the show, and we had a great creator in Jeremiah Cortez and showrunner Adam Henry and all the directors, and I think just especially in the heat of a pandemic, it's like we were able to come together in that very sort of somber time and create something that we're all proud of, which I think is a very rare experience to have in this industry.
Yeah, there's like few shows where like every character is like my favorite. Like,
yeah.
like I was like, all these characters, they're so like Jeremiah did a great job of like getting their personalities down, and like just like, because I remember even going through the Bible and I was like, this guy like has it all figured out. Like, it's just, but I do personally like Stella. I do relate to her a bunch. She's definitely reminds me of myself. All the self doubt.
But it fuels you.
Yeah.
I think the one character I probably and this is just probably just be trying to humbling myself, but it's like I think I relate to Garbage the most. Like even after a recent like rewatching, I was like, damn, I'm garbage.
don't call yourself that.
Like obviously not in the literal, but like in the sense, it's like, yeah, you're just kind of fumbling through, but you somehow get by. Like, because that's what he is. He tries his best, and he clearly cares. It's just a matter of he just fumbles the bag a few times, but he still, gets it through. Like he manages to make it out.
Yeah, he means well.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's adorable.
I do. Yeah, he's very cute.
I think my favorite character, I don't know, Sarah Mercer, I don't know what your favorite characters were. Mine was Choni's, probably, just because he was like so fun to draw, and like those big eyes lend themselves to like such fun expressions. I remember, I think Sarah was your drawing of Choni's going like "Mwahaha" inside the neck or something. Like that's an example of like how flexible and how open-ended I feel like his expressions can be. I mean, all the characters are like that, but I think Choni's especially, like, he was so much fun and so easy to draw. Like, that's another thing, too.
Yeah, I will say, like, yeah, they were... I struggled a bit with them in the beginning just because of, like sometimes, like, shows, like, I struggle, like, it's just not how I'm used to drawing, so it's, like, interesting, like, because I remember in the beginning, James would always be like, they're too stiff, and I'm like, I'm sorry. But, just, like, learning how to emote with dot eyes was also interesting, because, yeah, there was some stuff they were like, don't do this, and don't add lines, and don't do this, and then I think, yeah.
I feel like once you start drawing dot eyes, it's really hard to go back. I've noticed that I do more dot eyes in my roughs now because of Dogs in Space.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm like, I don't care, it works. It's fine.
Yeah.
I think the dot eyes, if anything, they really add to like kind of that unique charm, because every character, like, just like the fact that they can have sort of different animation styles sort of helps with the fact that it's like there are different species of dogs, so having different styles, I think, if anything, that's amplifying, just how memorable they can be in terms of like their design. And I think that's just something that really stuck out with me with every character that we saw.
Yeah, and the neck rolls.
Yeah. Gotta love those.
So fun.
Yeah.
So good.
That was always funny to me with Garbage. If ever he took his shirt off, it's like he just still has the neck roll. I'm like, I thought the shirt was doing it. It's like, no, that's really his neck.
He loves
There's
loves
this
those
one line.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's this one line delivery like Happy gives. He like takes it's when they're on that like magnetic, like near the end of the series, like the first season, and they're on that magnetic planet. Thank you. And he takes his shirt off, and just so happy he goes like, "Put your shirt back on, Garbage." Like, just like, I don't know how he delivered that line. Just it makes me laugh so hard every time.
That was a pretty funny episode between those two.
I remember. I can't. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I'm cutting you off. Go ahead.
I can't remember if I boarded or revised that part with taking the shirt off, but I remember being very like, oh my gosh, how does he do this with his stubby little arms and his big fat neck? Like, it was kind of hard to like figure out, but it worked. Like, the final animation, I didn't question it at all.
I know. That was like their little arms. I was always just like, how are they going to grab this thing?
Yeah.
It kind of like, I just have to cheat in the boards and I just make his arm longer. I was just like, I don't know.
There's that was a tough thing, staying with proportion sizes, especially when it came to limbs. There was one revision I did also in the puppy episode where Stella salutes Duchess, like it's kind of after her performance review. And that was one of the revisions I did, which was like a fun revision to work on. But I have her salute. She's like doing this, but actually in our character model, her arm can only like reach up to here. So if you look at the board, which I think I posted like the revision on Twitter, if you look at that, like her arm is like really long, but if you look at the animation, her arm is like much smaller because her head is so big, and like it only goes up to here. And I'm like, oh, the animators probably didn't like that I did that. There were probably like a lot of moments where I like drew something in a board and the animator or the background designer was like, why do you do this?
Oh, I mean,
which I'm sure is like something they're used to, but it's like, I want to make things easier.
Yeah.
Bless every VG designer that has to deal with my perspective, aka my non-existent perspective, my guess of perspective. Like, I think this is how the interior looks. Yeah.
So kind of going off of all that in terms of doing the boards and everything, what would you say goes into being like a board artist and revisionist and such, especially with a production like Dogs in Space with all these unique designs and backgrounds that we were able to see?
I think like for like I think with boards, especially like as like advice to people that are wanting to get into boards, I'd definitely say take some animation classes. Because I think that helps a lot with like understanding what is doable with animation. And then like
Right.
because sometimes I'll be boarding and I'll be like, I don't think I want to do this to an animator. So like I'll like try to like just kind of make it a bit easier, but like and then like yeah, just understanding like story and composition and like I still screw up on sometimes on the 180 roll. James would catch me on that.
Too.
I'm like, because yeah, it's like
one,
once you, I just like, it's like I get really like once I have characters kind of moving around a space a bunch. Sometimes it's like hard to like I get so into it and then I feel like forget like, oh, I just broke the 180 rule right there. But like so it's just like yeah, trying to catch stuff like that and then yeah, just kind of trying to think of like what you're trying to tell within the scene, like story wise, like what are the characters feeling? What's the emotion? Like what's the like I'm still working on this myself. Is like what's the point of this shot? Like why are we using this staging? Why are we using this? Like what is the point? Like you don't have to get so deep into it, but like because like you know if it's just a talking scene. Like you don't need to make some dramatic angles unless it's like really serious. Like you can keep it simple, but it's just kind of like I think like one thing I'm trying to work on right now is like efficient cuts and like because there's some board artists out there that I see. I'm like, God, they make boarding look so simple because they're so good at like being efficient with their cuts and then like how they use the space and yeah, just that's my advice.
I would say that like a lot of people getting into animation and into storyboarding in particular, you know, it helps to like, I'm just kind of piggybacking off what Sarah already said, like, you know, take classes, it helps know the fundamentals, but don't strive for perfection. Like everyone thinks you have to be the best artist in the world to be a board artist, and take from me personally, like you don't. It's like, it's just, you have to understand storytelling and you have to understand directing. And it's like, you know, I've seen people who are, yes, maybe less capable artists, but who turned out much better boards because they understood, you know, how to direct a scene and how to, you know, emote the characters properly and all that. So, yeah, so take classes. And then also, I was very stubborn about this, like, when I was younger. It's like I never used reference because I was like, I don't want to do that. I need to come up with everything in my brain because that's how a true artist works. And at this point, I'm just like, man, I don't have enough time to think of things in my brain. So like, I'll use reference. And like, you know, sometimes for some episodes, you know, on Dogs in Space, the director, I think when I was working on some episodes with James Sir, one of the directors, he would like send me videos or send me, you know, little GIFs and be like, have the character do something like this. And I'd be like, okay, that helps. So I would just say, you know, yeah, don't be afraid to do reference and don't be afraid to do stuff like that. Like that's what it's there for. That's what storyboard artists do. And like, you know, you want to be efficient, you want to be quick. So it's like, if you don't have the time to think all up in your head, just use reference.
That's like so perfectly lined up because I wanted to say the exact same thing. Not only for like character performance, but for just the energy of like in the you know how shots are strung together. Like if you're like, this moment makes me think of like something I've seen before, it's not really, you're not cheating. You're just like, let me see where it has worked in the past and what can I borrow from that.
Right.
We're not here to reinvent
Right.
the wheel, you know. So that really helps a lot. And they do that like at Lucasfilm. They do that. George Lucas would just cut together things from existing movies and send it to his artists and be like, we're like, do this. Like, I basically already made the movie with already existing films, so let's just do this. That can help, and I wouldn't shy away from that. And yeah, also it's good to keep in mind, like, I think taking animation classes does help, but just remember, we're not here to animate, you know, the boards.
Mm-hmm.
It just helps with the poses, in, you know, don't feel obligated to do all the in-betweens, because we're trying kind of to avoid doing that in the future of this craft.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've always been told, and this is from my friend D'Angelo Edwards of the Hats Off Media. He told me, or he mostly talked about the idea where it comes to limited animations. Like, sometimes you don't need to worry about having the most smooth animation. Sometimes it could just have such dynamic posing that it tells the story. Like, it's more of a fill in the dots versus a whole like thing where it's like it gives you all the information. Like, sometimes you just know it's limited, but you know what it's supposed to imply, you know. And in terms of like the 180 rule, I know there was this sort of rule I forgot that was actually very important that I should have done on a project I was working on. It is the idea of the rule of cool, where it's like, it's so, because we had like this really cool shot. It was beautiful. My cinematographer did really well, and Francis Kramer, just to give her some highlights, and like it was a really nice shot, but we cut it because it's like it would destroy continuity. But at the end of the day, it's like it's a really beautiful shot. I don't think anyone would have cared, and I'm kicking myself for that. It's just one of those things where it's like if it's just that cool, people probably aren't going to be that pedantic about it. That's just sort of the thing. That's just sort of the thing I think it's sort of to remember about in terms of working in this stuff, because it is true. It's like you're not about reinventing the wheel. Sometimes you just want to make something that's really cool, something that's really good, and because most people are probably focusing more on is this just really fun? Is this entertaining? Some want to be, you know, logic people and just, you know, really get into the weeds to that degree, which, you know, that's your bread and butter. But for others, it's like, I just want to have some fun, or I just want to see something that's just, you know, makes me feel.
I think it's really refreshing when that happens too. When you see that, like, you're like, wow, they just went for it. That's new. Like,
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all. Like, I think that's just always like a great thing, especially when you say like reusing certain assets from other things. Like, like we all know the obligatory Akira motorcycle shot that's always reused, but at the end of the day, it's like it's cool and it fits.
The Wilhelm scream,
usually whenever they use it, and they. Wilhelm scream, sometimes the Howie scream, even. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, does this work? And I think that's something some people tend to forget. It's like, in the context of what this is being used in, does this actually work? That's more important rather than just, oh my god, this was used somewhere else. It's like, okay, breathing's used somewhere else also, and we do that, and everyone
like
has to do that.
The thing too, it's like, it's almost like there's not really any original idea out there. Like, there's always, like, I've had, I remember, like, someone telling me, like, I forget words right now. Like, a executive told me that, like, he literally had one person, like, pitch him an idea of, like, business chicken. And it was a chicken with a suitcase. And literally, like 2 days later, he gets another pitch, and this person's like on the other side of the country. Business chicken with a suitcase. He's like, I'm not even joking. And he's like, I get so many, like, and it's like similar pitches. Like, I think around Steven Universe, they said like they had so many space pitches. It was just like, Just like there's like a weird trend of like similar ideas kind of getting pushed at the same time. It's interesting. So I don't really think it's like it's just like you kind of just do it. You're influenced by what you see. So
pretty much, yeah. It's always just sort of things that we all are inspired by something. So a lot of us want to either like pay homage to it or maybe even come up with an idea similar to it. And I think that's always it's interesting. Like someone could be able to be in one spot and think of a chicken with a suitcase, and someone could be all the way in another country or possibly continent and think, chicken with a suitcase.
So original.
It's just a great idea, to be honest. Now I'm inspired.
Yeah. Like at that point, it's like, well, now you just got to pick which business chicken.
Which casting is better?
Yeah.
It's like, is it? Do you want?
I think also there's this. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, go ahead. I've been talking too much. Go ahead, Tom.
I think also, we subconsciously, put things on our boards where we're like, oh yeah, this is fun, and like, then we later realize, oh, this is clearly something else. So like, something that I like to do with my characters in any show I'm working on is like they do this a little bit. And I realize it's Homer Simpson. It's like anytime he's like, woo, like he does that with his fingers. So anytime like you see a character do that, chances are I probably revised or like did a board for that. And I think everyone has like sort of like their little trademarks like that, and it's because of like what we grew up watching as kids, or like has just entered in our subconscious so deeply that it's just stayed with us creatively. And I mean, those are our little shout outs to the media that we watched growing up.
I remember having to explain to Adam Henry a meme that he didn't know that I put in my board, and I was like, "You get it?" And he's like, "Oh God, what was it?" James knew it, so I had one adult knew it. Okay. I don't. It got cut because Adam didn't understand it. I can't think back that far. But I know my brain can't go past like 5 months. It's like, what happened? I still sometimes think it's 2020. Yeah.
I mean, that's everybody at this point. Like, I sometimes forget 2 weeks is. Like I usually end up forgetting. Oh yeah, that was only 2 weeks ago.
Sometimes I look at old boards from Dogs in Space, and it's like I realized how much was cut. And like that's the thing. Like you can't get too married to like what you're drawing, but it's like, oh man, it would have been cool if this joke was in. But time constraints are a thing. So stuff.
I know. Left. I always have to like. It's like I want to explore and try to push myself sometimes, but I'm just like I don't have time. I don't have time to like try to improve. I have to just get this done. Like,
well, yeah, that's kind of not to get into all that, but that's kind of like an issue, like with how much stuff we're like studios sometimes expect storyboarders to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it was a little more like you just have to worry about the performance and the composition and stuff like that, you might get a little more like love put into certain sequences because there was actually time for it. But I don't know, not to go off on that little thing, but it's definitely a conversation that's happening right now because we're in negotiations.
Yeah.
Not to plug another show, but Arcane is like, have any of you watched Arcane?
Yeah.
And like they got, I think the board artists got like 4 or 5 months to like crank out a board or something. I feel bad because like this will go on YouTube, but I don't want someone in the comment to be like, no, that's wrong. It was this amount. But I think from what I've read, they had like really long schedules to, work on their shows. And like, that's why their stuff looks so good. And, and then you hear of other productions and they have like 4 weeks for a board turnaround and, it's tough. I think our schedule was like pretty decent. There were times when I was like working late. But I think I don't know how, you guys felt, but I think it was like, okay, our schedule, like there was still some crunch weeks for sure.
Yeah. I think it was an appropriate amount of time, especially compared to some other shows I've been on that like are like 45 to 50 pages that you have to finish in 5 weeks. Like, and I mean like to cleans, like ready to go. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah. They're like a lot on the line on along the lines of like months to be able to do the boards. It's like wow, it just goes to show you
Yeah.
time like means a lot
Yeah.
when it comes to animation. And, like we very much saw the end result with Arcane, and it's like wow. But I think even with Dogs in Space, it's like it's a beautiful.
Yeah.
It's honestly a gorgeous series. Like that was something I was looking at, and I'm like, wow, this looks amazing. I just love like all the color palettes and like the character designs and all the unique aliens that they would meet and some of the planets they would be on, or even the technology they would play with. Like it still looks like gorgeous.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
the art
I love
direction's
it.
really nice.
Yeah.
I always love that shot of the giant like space whale.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was like one of the
yes.
first
Yeah.
animations to come back, wasn't it? Like I remember Adam showing us that in like one of the.
I was just like, whoa!
Yeah, so inspiring. We were all
And
just
that was
like,
such a-
Space whale!
And that was such a good shot to show on early in the series, like at the very first episode. Basically, it's like after the first set piece, and it's like it was such a good way of telling the audience, this is the scale that we're looking at. And then you see, and then the next shot, you see a shot of the Embark, like their hub ship, and it's like huge as well. And so that just hammers that home. I think the first episode did a really good job of showing us the tone and the characters and the scale of what the show is trying to do. And I think that's why space shows are like kind of popular, because there's just so much you can do when you have an open-ended sandbox. Like it can be overwhelming sometimes, especially like I don't envy the writers who worked on the show and like, okay, how much space do we have to play in? Like you can do anything pretty much. And but that's what's so great about it, rather than being confined to small. And I admire shows that also like confine shows to like, small areas and small spots, because you have to be more creative with your limits as well. But like each one has their advantages and disadvantages. And I think Dogs in Space really played it to its advantage pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. Like I can definitely see that it's like you clearly it's clearly a show with a lot of options for space, but managed to understand it's like bring it back a little on some of this, so it's not too overwhelming. Like you can get the idea, you understand why we're doing this and that. Like I think that's always something I can appreciate when it's like you restrain yourselves just enough, like, but you still can go crazy with some stuff when you need to. Right. So we know with the pandemic changing up how productions had to operate, the things definitely were funky in terms of like, the movie making industry or TV shows as well, in terms of like live action. But animation was like the one medium that was able to thrive through it. So was it difficult getting your jobs done through this?
There are times, yeah.
I would say yes,
like,
pretty easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I had just decided to move and live on my own, and then the pandemic hit, and I just I had a bit of a mental I wouldn't say breakdown, but it was just I think because just with everything going on, and then the Black Lives Matter was going on, and I was watching that, and I was seeing all the videos, and it I just felt so angry and upset, and just and it was just really hard to focus. It just felt like the world was kind of crashing at the time. So it was just I struggled with my boards, but Tom and Marissa, I'm always so grateful for them, because they helped me out so much with the revisions and stuff. But yeah, it was just I think it's gotten better now, because obviously we're 2 years into it now. But I think just in the beginning, it was just this was only supposed to be 2 weeks. We're back in the studio. So it was just for me, yeah, personally, that was just my struggle. But fortunately, our actors are animated characters, so we didn't have to it was kind of more of just we didn't really get that little break in between it was just okay, well, now you're working from home, oh, boop, act like everything's normal,
Yeah. I think on our end it was, I think the adjustment period, well, I came in right in the pandemic, so I already came after the adjustment period. But I think for storyboard artists in general, I think the adjustment period was probably smoother. I think though, I think for the directors who were working with editors, I think that was a bit tougher. Like putting the edit together, I think was probably going to be more difficult. I think recording voice actors, that was going to be a whole other thing. Like all the voice actors had to do like all these at home setups and like try and create spaces where, you know, they don't have any acoustics and, you know, there aren't any echoes in the record. And like there are some recordings I can listen to on the show where it's like, oh, I can still hear a little bit of echo because this person was recording. Like it's not noticeable. It's only because like all of us who like worked on the boards, we were listening to the audio over and over so many times as we were recording. Like, okay, now I can pick up like little nuances. Like, oh, this person sounds like they're recording in a closet. This person sounds like they're recording in their bedroom, but you can hear the echo bouncing off the wall. But I think you know, it was you, Marissa and Sarah. You both had like worked union jobs like prior to the pandemic, right? You were in studios prior. Like this was my first studio storyboarding gig ever, and I was like so excited to like finally go into a studio and like finally meet people, and, like, you know, build up relationships and all that stuff. And then the pandemic happened, and I'm a kind of introverted person, so like it was hard for me to like develop. Marissa, I probably didn't like start talking to you properly until like halfway through my time at Dogs in Space, and I think, you know, it was really cathartic. We had like a premiere for the show. We had like a premiere party for the show in November, and that was the first time we got to see anyone in person, and that was so nice and so cathartic and like so great to finally like meet all of you. It was so weird to see what everyone's height was. Everyone's camera level when they're on Zoom or like on a video call, but when you meet in person, you're like, okay, this person is taller or shorter than I thought they would be. But yeah, it was yeah, go on.
Oh, James was so sweet. And he would like bring us food sometimes, like my director, and like I didn't know how tall he was, and it was really funny because the first time he came to like drop off food, he's like, I saw your eyes go like, because he's like over 6 feet tall. He's just, but yeah, I know. I missed that. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I keep talking. Go ahead, Rex.
Oh no. I wasn't. I don't really have. I was just gonna agree with everything you guys said.
Yeah, I just missed that. Like, yeah. I only like know storyboarders now, like on my shows. I don't like know the color designers that well. I don't know, like, you know, you kind of branch out and you meet other people in the different departments, and you don't have that anymore. So it's just kind of like, oh.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a lot harder on the social level, and then like mental health wise, like it was hard just because, you know, you're literally like the "this is fine" dog, and you're just drawing like, here's a little neck roll on this dog when the insurrection's happening. Like, oh my god.
Oh god! And the week of the election, I think I got no work done because I was just like,
I did not. The insurrection and the election, I just sat and I was just like, I draw like one thing and then I'm like, like I just could not focus.
That production,
go on.
It literally went through almost like every apocalyptic scenario when we were on that show. Like, and we're also like, and then the show is about leaving Earth because we destroyed it.
There you go.
Jeremiah.
It does say at the beginning of the first episode. It does say on the first episode based on a future true story. So I think that still holds.
I think Jeremiah is just a prophet, and he's just like, I'm just gonna tell them in animation. There you go, guys. Figure it out. Like,
But other than that, I do think it actually wasn't too bad. Like, we were able to hit our deadlines. Like, and it was honestly pretty, I think, more seamless than people thought it would be. Like, production wise, but it was just a little bit chaotic for the mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was just like getting everything set up. Like, that's the big thing, is like, because each studio has their own like ways of security, and like, so like each new show, it kind of varies on like what I gotta download on my phone or what I gotta download on the computer to like, you know, security.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think,
But yeah,
I think-
a lot of
go on.
oh sorry, a lot of studios have been like accommodating at least to like understanding. It's like hey, like my internet went out today, I can't work, or you know, it's just kind of like
I would hope they can accommodate
Yeah.
for that, because like our internet.
Well, that
can
was
be so
really
flimsy
funny. I
sometimes.
think because we were working with, Atomic, which is in Canada, and like they didn't really understand that LA's like internet was so bad. Like it kind of took them a while to be like, "Oh, can't we just upgrade this?" And they're like, "No, this is as good as it gets. Like, we're sorry, the infrastructure is bad."
Give me that fiber already.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think one of the other things as board artists is like one thing that gets kind of lost a bit, especially when you're doing everything virtually, is like during the pitches. When you pitch something, like if you pitch something in a room, I would know this because, like I said, this was my first studio gig. But one thing I've heard from people is like it's tough not getting that reaction of like pitching your boards to people and like either having them laugh at a joke or smile, like make suggestions, because like if you're pitching on Zoom just virtually and everyone's like maybe on mute, so they're like not you don't hear them sipping their water or something, and it's just like you're pitching to a silent room and you kind of have to like look over to the sidebar to see if people are smiling in the like when you pitch like the jokes that you want to get reactions out of. And I think that's one thing I'm looking forward to, like when we eventually go back to offices. It's just like getting more energy from, like it helps like be around people because you get creative energy from people. It helps to be around and like brainstorm with others, and it helps with pitches to like see what's really working in your board and what isn't. So I think that's one thing I'm looking forward to when we eventually get back to offices.
Oh yeah, I definitely could see how, because that is one of the big things that was annoying, is that you lose that human connectivity. Like a bit. It's easier to just be like, sure, it's easy to do Zooms, but now you don't really have like the human element of people every now and then, like cutting in to point out something else, or to actually have some type of realistic reaction. Like maybe they actually do laugh at a joke or something that you put on like your boards or something. And it's amazing that you guys are able to push through it, especially like Sarah was pointing out that like, you're working on a sort of technically an apocalyptic series while sort of the apocalypse is going on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
wouldn't stop.
This is how bad my brain is. I completely forgot like last year was the January 6th. I thought I'm just like oh my God.
right.
Time doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. Living through, there's that meme, it's like, I don't feel like living through another like monumental event today or whatever it is.
Yeah, the Squidward button, it's like, I really wish I wasn't living through an historic event right now. Or
yeah, we've had enough for a couple lifetimes.
This is like,
just like, can we stop?
Exactly.
Maybe just like,
just give us like 30, 50, actually 50 years, then go ham. Pretty much, just like there, I'm done. I can't do anything anyway. But it is definitely like this pandemic definitely is like it was able to shine a light on a lot of things. I think animation definitely was able to the biggest thing from the pandemic, and that's not to glorify anything, is that it was able to showcase the power that animation really has, because and that's something a lot of people keep pointing out, is that it's like through it all, animation was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, while it was all live action had to basically just shut down. And I think that's just why there's been such a clear love for animation, like a boom of love for animation since the pandemic. You see way more people paying attention to stuff like the New Deal going on.
Yeah, that's great.
All that.
We need that.
Like,
yes. Super appreciative.
And on streaming services, animation did really well last year. Like they were.
We made them so much money. They can pay us more.
Where's our cut?
They can spare a few. Right. Like they need to spare a few. Like they're
I want to buy property in Los Angeles, damn it. That's a whole other story. I won't open that can of worms. I'm sorry.
I was literally just thinking about like I'm getting married and I'm like maybe a house. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, next month.
They're both getting married.
Oh yeah, that's
Tom,
right.
yeah,
Tom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, congratulations both then.
So exciting.
I have a cat.
I don't. Here's my cat.
Oh, baby.
But this is about dogs.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
No, you're good. I love Phoebe. She's so cute.
No, it's
From working on the boards, and you've probably drawn characters, done backgrounds, and all that, and set up shot compositions and such. Who would you say is like your favorite character?
I already mentioned
I
Chonies
think-
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah,
I say like Stella or Nomi. I think Nomi just because I like trying to make her as cute as I could. And then Stella just because like I just related to her a lot. So like anytime she was like stressing out, I'm like, I feel you, girl. That's me.
This is the nightmare question for me because this morning I was like, if he asks that, what am I gonna say? And I like went through every character and I'm like, oh, I love them too. I love them too. Like, I have to say, Nomi is probably my favorite. I love her energy. I love drawing her. Like, she's so fun. I also really like. Weirdly enough, I really like Happy.
I was going to say Happy is a close second for me. I love Happy.
He's so funny, and I just love that kind of like character, that like grumpy sort of like, oh, everything offends me. Like, I love those ones.
Yeah, he's so
like a love
snarky.
hate.
Right.
Yes. The snark is very heavy, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
JP Karliak, who's the voice actor, he's so good. And like anytime I got a scene or a vision with him, I'm just like, yes, thank you.
He was always very fun performances.
I definitely was getting a good sense that he was like really enjoying his role as Happy, especially like in the last few episodes, because the way he was just constantly berating Garbage in every second he could. Just what you get, it's like Garbage just like got stranded on some magnet planet. So of course, like you're gonna like throw as many shots where you can.
It makes me think of like Star Trek episodes of like McCoy and Kirk and Spock being stranded somewhere, and then McCoy is just always just like complaining, and it's just like the two just have to put up with him. It's so funny. Also, I love that his name is Happy. Like it's hilarious. Like I have a friend who has a cat that's so angry, and it's named Mr. Sweetie, and I just can't get over stuff like that. Like I love that.
Yeah, just the dissonance between like
yeah.
him being this surly character named Happy is just icing on the cake. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Nomi was definitely like on rewatch. I was like, oh, she's a lot of fun. She's really funny, just because it's like she's such a cute dog, but she like it's like in the final episode when she puts on like the battle armor and everything, or has that complete arsenal. And she's supposed to be so intimidating, but it's like she's still so adorable.
She names the little space worm. She's like, okay, bye. Like,
oh, so cute and so lethal.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, cute but lethal.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
I was going to say I also just like loved Kira too. I think just because she just provided such an emotional back. I mean, along with Garbage, like she just provided such an emotional backbone for the entire series. And like, I teared up like in the last couple episodes, like the spoil. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't watched it, but like there's some stuff that happens and it gets very emotional. And like the voice acting and the expressions and everything is so great. It's done so well. So it's her character is like in terms of like how fleshed out she is and how deep she goes, I think Kira's definitely one of my favorites too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting, like, as we, like, learned about the story as we were boarding, like, I really loved Kira, like, from the get-go, and then you kind of learn, like, I mean, yeah, I guess mute if you haven't watched the whole thing, but, like, then we learn she kind of has, like, a little bit of a villain arc, and I'm like, really? Like, I love, this is crazy, I love her, I want her to, like, come back. Like, yeah, anyway.
She definitely played more into that idea that where it's like this is definitely a different show with the fact that it's like I shouldn't be agreeing with her, but I do because at the end of the day she is right. Like they kept like every time she just had a good point and it's like I don't argue against that. You just
That's
can't.
true. She's right.
She's crazy, but
We're
at
humans,
the end
man.
of the day, she's right.
We're messed up.
What shots, if you can like name off the top of your head, would you say were like the most difficult to be able to board?
Good question.
For me personally, I think it's usually when every single character is there and doing something like either like actiony or even just like, even if sometimes, you know, the script will be like, here they all are in this like place, but they don't, the scripts aren't written like, and each one is doing this, like, so you kind of have to think like, what are they all doing in this space right now? And it's a, I don't want to say it's difficult, but it's not like annoying. Like, I like that challenge, but it's time consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kept getting the fight sequences, and
those are tough.
I'm not that great at fighting. I did like the Stella fighting those bird things.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
But because like I had done it, that's where I actually used an anime reference, but then they wanted me to change the like angle of it, so I had to like redo it. But like I did, it was one of those where it was just like the like plane was constantly like just panning by, and then she's just like just in one spot, like as the birds were coming in. I call them the birds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I think usually just fighting. I'm not like the greatest at it, but I kept getting it, so it was just kind of like trying to make it interesting and cool. But yeah, like because like with Garbage, it's like he's supposed to think he's skilled, but he's not. And then Stella can hold her own, and you know Nomi's just crazy. But yeah, but I agree that too with Marissa. Anytime there's like a ton of characters on screen, that's where the 180 breaks happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets complicated.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you. Like group shots and fighting scenes are definitely like up there. I think one of the revisions I was struggling with was when like I revised a little bit on like episodes 1 and 2, like the ones where we get introduced to Kira, and I did some bits where she's running on all fours, and I'm not good at drawing things that are on all fours. So I had to, because you know Kira is like very dog-like when you first meet her, and she like does a lot of dog activity, and that's not something I've really had. I normally draw bipedal human people, and it was really tough for me to like figure out that reference for like okay, how do dogs naturally move? Like how are their haunches moving? Like I'm not trying to animate it, but there's just like you want to make it look natural enough that the animators can look at it and be like, okay, this is what I have to do. So yeah, four-legged stuff was, that was I got through it and I managed to turn in the work, but yeah, that was tough for me.
I do imagine like a lot of those action sequences, because every time I saw like whenever y'all would have like some type of action, it's like, wow, that looked pretty extensive with some of the stuff you got, like the say either the fight with usually anything with Kira, I guess, because like I said on rewatch, like the fight with Kira versus Garbage, and then there's Kira versus it was Stella and the one
Jerry,
the one big dog who
or no Duchess, maybe
Duchess.
The other one,
Duchess. The Saint Bernard. That's Duchess.
Yeah, I think.
Yes,
I love her too.
Yes, Duchess. Like that. Yeah, Or even like say, I think even Choni's fight in the mech
Yeah.
suits. I feel like that
That
part
was a really
that was
action-heavy
pretty
episode.
extensive.
Yeah, Megan did my board partner Megan did that one, and she did a really good job on it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
We kind of lucked out too because they were going to be in 3D, so we didn't really have to draw them too like on model. So like that was nice because that was the other thing. Like I'm not good at mech, like drawing like vehicles or mech or stuff. So like if you looked at my boards, all the spaceships were like circles.
In spaceship here.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like cars and stuff, I'm just like, oh boy.
I think that the action scenes were tough, but I think doing ships in space was easier for me because there was no perspective, there was no ground plane you had to work from. So it's just like you're drawing a ship and it's just like a dark void behind it, and you can move the camera anywhere, and you can have the ship do flips and stuff, and not worry about how the perspective is going to change. So that was kind of like a nice sort of practicing ground for me, so I could like mess around a little bit, and then once I get to real action scenes that I had to use perspective for, I was like, okay, I've done my training. Let's see where we go from here.
Right. I feel like if anything, like those who might be watching or listen, who will like watch or listen, will find some levity knowing that it's like, like they get into boarding. It's like, oh, I don't have to be extensive with all the designs.
Yeah.
Because like y'all said, you sometimes just draw the shapes that make it, but it's not as well detailed.
Yeah. You don't have time to.
It's like
I've seen portfolio. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it definitely depends on the production. I've had some where they really want you to tie those down, and it's
Duncanville
brutal.
was like that, right? You had to be pretty clean on Duncanville, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's intense. They want it pretty much ready to go overseas to just animate. Hit the animate button. Not really. They do a lot more than that, but that's what like they when they want your show to be so like tight and pristine, it sometimes does feel like they just tightly want woven. You to just fill in the blanks. But yeah.
That's interesting. Like even like for something like Duncanville that they get like that extensive, because something like Dogs in Space is like seems more extensive with all the unique designs and everything.
It's also to save money on because retakes cost a lot.
Yep.
They take a lot out of the budget.
That's exactly.
I had a friend that was on Family Guy, and they just flat out said just trace the model sheet, and that's why on Family Guy they only do these like these poses because it's just easy. And they don't have they don't have to worry about like how much it's going to cost to like fix stuff.
Any primetime adult animated show seems to be like that, which is it's too bad. You have these amazing artists and you're kind of just using them to copy paste model sheets. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Dogs in Space, that's why I loved it. It was so the opposite of that.
Forgiving.
Yeah.
I think it also helped that
I think that's
all the storyboards and all the animation was done by Atomic Cartoons. Like I think it was just all in house.
Yeah.
Obviously, like they have their studios in Canada, which are like doing the animation, but I think it helped that the pipeline was a little more simplified, and they didn't have to. When the boards went to animators, I don't think it had to go through as many hoops in terms of like communication and stuff like that.
Yeah, you didn't have to over-explain or oversell anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely adds like a lot of perspective into things. Would you say it's like, because with Dogs in Space, it's definitely more a family-friendly or family-oriented type of series, where something like Duncanville or Family Guy is adult. Would you say it's like, would you say it's a bit more common for stuff that's family-oriented to be more forgiving in the boarding process, or would it be more, it really does vary from studios?
It varies on budget. The budget kind of dictates everything. Because it's kind of like they have like stuff set aside for like retakes, but like for example on Animaniacs that I was on, like they just started like doing retakes in house here at WP because it was just costing too much to just like do the notes, send it back overseas, get it back. It's still wrong. It just costs way too much. So they're just like, we'll just have some animators in house here that they just either they'll animate something that they think is going to be too complicated to ship overseas, because you have to remember, like, they're getting stuff and it's in English, and they have to have somebody translate it.
Right.
And it's like, that's why, like, a lot of times with boards, it's like, you really, if you're going to have like something that, like a shot, like a character like this, and then you cut, you need to make sure they have it like this, because like 2 separate animators are going to have it and they're not going to know like what's going on, because they're just getting what they need to animate. And it's just, there's just like, that's the other thing. It's like, you got to think about overseas. It's like, are they going to understand what I'm like drawing here, or is it like to, you just want to make it clear.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it just varies from show to show, and like from budget to budget, like you said. It's just it's how much freedom you get.
I think on Ben 10 there was at one point where like we ran out of our retake budget, so this is just gonna have to stay in. There's that one thing, like Dexter's Lab, that one where they're like the audience just like flies off for no reason. And
that one moment,
like,
that was always so weird.
In English, they said like, I think the crowd like goes wild or something, but they
wait,
like
which episode is this? I feel like I would remember this because I watched
the Chuck E. Cheese one where they went to the Chuck E. Cheese restaurant,
or like the crowd kicks off or something, and they just go ahead, you can tell.
It's something like that. And so they literally were like, oh, okay. So they animated the people just flying away, and they thought it was so funny that they just kept it.
I gotta watch that.
Right. Like, that was always... I watched that as a kid, and I was always like, why did that happen? I was like... I never got the answer to why that happened. And then, like, sometime later, I think someone who worked on the show explained that it's like something it was just a matter of something got lost in like translation or so, and that's just something that's now there, and it's like we can't get it.
I
we
love
can't
stuff
redo
like
it.
that. Like, that's my kind of humor that like that makes you just go like, why? Like, what?
I love it. Yeah.
Honestly, thinking more on it, it's like they technically could have just edited it, so it's like that shot doesn't happen at all. But they thought,
I just watched it. I had to look it up. That's amazing. I don't remember this episode very well, but like, it's so insane. I love that. Those are the best kind of mistakes.
It was kind of an odd episode, honestly, because it was like Dexter was at this Chuck E. Cheese thing and he was winning too many tickets, and then coming to find out it's like it's a mafia deal type of thing going on, where it's like, oh, you can't be winning all this stuff, and like Dexter now needs to break out. It was a weird episode. Like, to this day, I was like, what the hell did we watch back then? That was weird.
Oh man, I wish someone would put together a compilation of like little mistakes like that from across cartoons over the last few decades, and just like little things that got lost in translation, because those.
It's kind of like sometimes it comes down to like, there's this little error here, but there's just way bigger jarring error. Where do we want to put the money? Obviously, we're going to put it towards the more bigger jarring thing.
Right.
Yeah,
I love stuff
some of that
like
stuff
that.
is just. I do too. It's just funny.
I would much prefer that to happen than like us over explaining to these overseas, like, I feel bad for them. Like, I'm not saying they need this to be over explained. They're artists too. Like, I want them to be able to have some creativity, and to avoid the cost of retakes, we just have to like just be so like nitpicky, and I feel like they barely have any creative room to do anything.
This kind of speaks to sort of a topic that a friend of mine, same D'Angelo Edwards, like pointed out when it comes to like a lot of newer animations, and that there's some animations, and it's kind of on Disney side, not to point fingers like that, but it's kind of where it's like it's a little too clean that you can't notice artist quirks, like you don't get to see something that says, oh, this artist did that or that artist did that. And I think that was something that never thought too much about until I realized, that actually is true. Like back in the day, there were like some type of weird thing about something that just kind of made these things really feel, more unique to themselves, or more like
Organic.
owned by
Yeah.
organic. There you go. Like way more organic.
Yeah.
Which, and not to say that the stuff we get now is bad or anything, but it is like you notice that it's like they're trying to clean it up enough that it kind of loses the organicness a bit.
I get what you mean. I've thought about that before, because I definitely noticed that more in 2D animation. You can see sort of the trademarks come through a little more. Like you can see them in 3D animation too, but they're not as obvious. But if you look like sort of during the 90s Disney Renaissance, like, Andres Deja, is this animator who like animated Jafar from Aladdin, and he animated Scar, and you can kind of tell if you look at their mouths and their jaws, like, okay, you can kind of tell it's the same. And then you look at someone also like Eric Goldberg, who's this other Disney animator, and he did the genie, and he did Phil from Hercules, and he also has a very distinct style where he has like really smooth sort of Al Hirschfeld like aesthetic. And like, so yeah, when you look at those movies, and especially 2D animation, you can definitely see those quirks come through a little bit more. But I think they were able to blend with the Disney style enough and not overextend, so that it's just not completely their own different thing, but they still stayed unique. And like, that's why I remember those characters so well, because their art, you can see their artists like quirks come out through them.
Right.
Tom's trying to do his own quirk, this thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes see it with like, just since they're so like dead ho and like following the boards, like telling the animators to follow, like sometimes like I start seeing like, oh, I know who boarded this part, like Eddie Trigueros, I think if I said his name right. Like, I love Wandering Over Yonder is probably like my favorite cartoon. And like anytime like just like I found myself being able to be like, I think he did this section, and then I'd find his boards and be like, oh yeah, like, and then like, yeah, sometimes like you'll find like, oh, they drew over my drawing, and you're like, oh god, no, don't trace over my drawing, because this was drawn in like 30 seconds. Like, because sometimes they'll use your board drawings as a keyframe. So they'll just trace over. And I remember on Ben 10, I drew this really ugly Ben face, and they traced it. And I was like, oh, God, no.
I'm sure that's someone's favorite face. It's probably their icon somewhere.
I tried whenever I could to draw him and Gwen as cute as I could, because I was just like, I'm just going to make him really cute. I wish, cute things.
I wish when they release like animated TV shows and movies, they would just release the whole animatic alongside it. Because I love seeing, like, that's where you really see the artist quirks come through and like see their distinct styles. And that was a real treat. On Dogs in Space, I was like rewatching so many of the animatics, and, I could tell what was a Sarah drawing. I could tell what was a Marissa, and I could tell what was a Megan, and Stephen Lee, one of the other revisionists. And or like a Monica or a James Sir, like or an Ed Chi, who are our directors. And I think that sort of goes back to like being in a studio and getting to know people. I think you also get to know people through their drawings and how they board. I learned so much looking at all of my crew members' drawings, and like it taught me like how to do certain other gestures, or how to like approach different scenes as an artist, or like from different camera angles. And, that was a real treat, like seeing every other artist's sort of talents and, quirks come through. And that's why I also follow like storyboard artists like on Instagram or Twitter, because they always post like fun stuff, like from what they worked on, like depending on what show they were on. And, it's a competitive industry, but it kind of isn't too. Like everyone's kind of in the same boat. It's like, yeah, we're all trying to get work. And right. I think it really helps to like learn from one another and not like burn bridges at all. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's just something where it's like, I know a lot of people want to believe in the idea of loyalism to one studio or the other, but at the end of the day, it's like a lot of people across the board from all these different studios know each other, and they're not wishing to beat each other. It's just a matter of like, we're just comrades, like just trying to make the funny cartoons move. Trying to eat rent. Exactly.
Yeah. Gotta pay rent.
Exactly.
I think it also. Sorry, and I'm talking more here, but I think it also comes to like when people are graduating college, they're like, I want to work at Pixar or DreamWorks or Cartoon Network, and like those all great companies like we all want to work there. But I think after, being in this industry for a little longer, it all comes down to like, do I enjoy the show? Do I enjoy the crew that I'm working with? Am I taken care of?
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be something that, people new to the industry have to know going in. It's like, you can work for the company that you've always wanted to work for, but, it all comes down to, how's your experience? It doesn't matter if you have that, like, it obviously matters to have that name attached to your resume, like to have a certain company attached to your resume. But I see people get burnt out working at great companies, and I see people having great experiences working at smaller companies, and or you can mix and match it, like everyone's experience, everyone's show is different. So, you gotta, you don't want to be picky because like people want work, but at the same time, you got to start like knowing your worth and like what your value is, and like, do I deserve to be treated this way? So, yeah. Sorry,
they're all about it's business. It's like I think like myself, like going into it, I just was thinking like, oh, it's like gonna be such a creative, like, and it is like creative, but it's like, I thought it'd be like more like, oh, like we value the art, like we, we're so creative, like blah blah blah, and then you get in there and it's just like oh, like we can't have girl shows, like what about the boys, like it's just like, it's just all this stuff. It's just like you're kind of just, you're finding yourself having to fight to like get things, and like when we have these little wins, it's like everybody's like, you see on Twitter, you get all the people, they're like, oh, everything's so woke. It's like, you do not know how hard it took to get this one thing in. It's just like, it's because they're gonna look at the numbers and they're like, oh, this country, like, they're doing great, like they love our show, they're making us a bunch of money in like toy sales and so we can't do this, like we're not allowed to do this because they don't like this, so we can't do that, like, it's just kind of like, it's you learn the business.
That creativity and that like harmony really does come from the crew, like not necessarily the studio.
Like Ben 10, I learned about how much toy companies actually control the show. Like they told us how many aliens we could put in, like what, like which alien to put in what episode, like, and because I remember like the original series, my brother would watch it and I was always like, why do you use that alien? That doesn't make any sense. And so then I was like sitting there, I was like, now I know.
So kids thinking about, because I did grow up on the original Ben 10, and from what you're saying at that point, it's like, oh, that's why they have him mess up so much, because they just wanted to showcase that alien.
Because it was like forearms needed to be shown like a certain number of times a season because he was like the favorite. And it's just very like, we could add an alien, but we couldn't take the 3 that they said we had to use like out. We had to use them. So sometimes you would just have Ben just do it and just stand there and just be like,
oh, I'm gonna buy that toy now.
I'm like, what? Why is he using accelerate right now? What's the point? Like, how do I make this reasonable? Like, okay, he's gonna run across the room, and now he's done.
And that's honestly different than I was expecting, because I knew, but like back in the day, like back in the 80s with this, Transformers or He-Man and Thundercats, like that was like toy companies were definitely like the leading charge of like animation, but to know it's like it's still kind of a thing today, I'm like, wow. And especially, and it's kind of weird considering like a lot of shows nowadays, people are asking for a lot of merch, like toys and such, but now it's like difficult to get.
We want Dogs in Space plushies. Like, no one, like,
yes, by all means, let's get some plushies.
I mean, I don't want to have to go on Etsy to look for this. Like, they should be making them. I don't know if they are on Etsy.
I'm gonna look.
I always wondered that with like Disney, especially because I felt like a lot of Disney shows, like especially with the fans asking for it, but. Yeah, I don't know, like, I know that's another business thing I don't know much about, like why. But
it's interesting you mentioned Transformers, because that was actually one of the first, I worked on Transformers Robots in Disguise as a production assistant. And and that was like, it was a great crew, but there's obviously like this jaded sense of like, we're just making a show to sell toys. It was a fun show to work on, and like, you know, everyone put their heart into it. But yeah, now we're kind of at the opposite end. It was like, we want toys, we want, you know, we want longevity to the franchise that we're working on. We want people to show their support. So it's like, where's the middle ground?
Ben 10, it was great because the crew, it just, like, we still hang out all the time too. Like even like one of the executives there was just like, I've never seen like a crew bond this much as you guys. Like, and it was just because I think we all were just like, yeah, it's, you know, it's Ben 10. Like, we're gonna try our best, but like, it's just kind of like, at least the little kids like it. That's, you know, everybody else might hate us, but the little kids like it, and that's what's important. Because they're the targeted audience.
Right. At the end of the day, the nerds, they can just kind of go do something else. At the end of the day, it's like, you're yelling at a kid's cartoon. Like, come on, let these people, let the kids.
And there's so many
fun.
like, I think there's like so many iterations of it too already. It's kind of just like, you can only tell the story so many times. Like,
right. Because because like the new one was fresh off of Omniverse ending like 2 years prior, so it is like you're gonna get some repeats here and there, which
it's, I mean, I understand it. It's just like, it's kind of like, I can't help you there.
Right. like they could put the stuff on, the stuff's probably on streaming somewhere. You could just go rewatch that. You know, that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just kind of like, you know, I can say like, oh, let's try to do this, and then it's like, no, we don't have the money. Like, so
it's all budget.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's fun to just explore. Like, I mean, I'll admit myself, like, sometimes I get sick of all the reboots. Like, I want more original stuff to start coming out, because I am, like, I think part of it is they probably have to relicense their stuff, so they're just rebooting everything to, like, that's what Disney is doing right now with all those live action. They gotta, like, keep their copyright on stuff. So, but it's just kind of like, I do miss, like, Dogs in Space was refreshing, because it's just like, oh, it's nice to be on something like, you know, like original and like.
Yeah, that was great to like work on that from the ground up, because after Dogs in Space, I started working on some other shows where I was working with like, you know, legacy characters, like characters that already existed, and they're cool characters to work with. I love working with these characters, but Dogs in Space was special because, like you said, Sarah, it's like working. You get to be like really hands-on with these characters. You kind of get to develop their personalities yourselves because they're not established at this point.
Right.
So yeah, that was another really special treat, just getting to work on an original property like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I feel is always very refreshing. That's why I think I even clung to Dogs in Space so much, because it's the fact that it's not a reboot; it's a wholly original property, and so I'm getting a whole new experience versus just same old stuff that I've been seeing for a good minute now. Like, I just think that's just something I kind of appreciate a lot about, like, say most of these new age original shows. That it's like, even if it's something like, say, Arcane, which is based on a game, it's like it's in a new medium that I haven't seen before. It's different.
Yeah.
Like,
that show's so good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was so hesitant to watch it because like there's so much discourse on it, and I'm like, I feel exhausted. I don't know if I want to participate in all that. But my fiance played it like one day, and I was just hooked.
I think that's kind of the thing for me. Is always like, I just sometimes I just watch for myself, just to avoid like, I don't need the fandom. I've done that before. It wasn't fun. Let me just watch this for myself. Y'all can talk about it over there. Keep me away from that.
I think my favorite thing too about the show is like music for the fights. Just like every fight had its own kind of like music to it. Like like it was cool. Like kind of like a theme and stuff.
Oh yeah, I always love when they choreograph that stuff.
Yeah, like the bar fight, they had like it kind of like that southern, like, you know, like like saloon music, you know, when they're fighting. Like
every so often, I have to watch that bridge fight from episode 7, the one with
It's
Echo.
so-
Yeah.
I have
I
that
love that one.
favorite.
That was
I'm going to show that to my
students.
students and be like, actually, I think the company that storyboarded it, I think they just recently put up a link to like a lot of the storyboards they did, and they include a storyboard for that sequence too. I'll have to find it. Someone posted it recently.
Yeah, send it to me because I love that shot where it's just the little stop, the watch going back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is so cool.
It's such a good, like, they do an amazing job of, like, you're in this battle and they also are just showing, like, the history of the character.
Right,
And they're
yeah.
really, oh my god, I was just like, I could have cried. I was like, I want more of this,
Aw.
like, please.
It's just amazing to me because it's like it's doing two things. It's like it's giving you a good battle while also telling the story of these two characters who you didn't really see interact that much. It's like, how do you, it's like I never thought you could do that. That's an option.
It's not just like intense action; it's heavily emotional too. Like
Exactly.
And
Anyway.
it shows how he's like reading her movements too, because they're so used to like how they used to like play, and like he's reading how, and then he's grown, so then that's how he beats her in the end because he now knows like her next move. Like,
Exactly.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so deep.
Yeah,
Right.
I love it.
But
Oh yeah. So I'm trying to think, would this be in the same ballpark as the favorite character? Good. I'm trying to.
Oh, is
kinda
that where
wanted
we
to ask-
started?
No, we started like in terms of like what was the most like difficult thing to make.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we
So-
went on some tangents.
Yeah. I mean, it's something it's a lot to listen to. It was definitely a lot of information to say. I think everyone's gonna be happy to hear all that. So, but yeah, I want to say sort of just for fun. Who would you pick? Who would you pick as any of the main characters to be like a pet?
Good question. That's a good question. I don't know.
I'm just gonna say Jerry because he's already
Oh, yeah.
primed for
Yeah,
the other
dog-
ones.
Yeah.
I might feel too guilty taking any of the other ones. I don't know. Like,
You're too human now. Like, you're too advanced. I don't want to make you a pet.
also,
Right.
my fiance is very partial to Jerry. Like, he loves Jerry so much. Even as like a dog, he's just like always sad. Like, I hope he wants to be that way. I'm like, I think he does. It's okay.
I think just Garbage because he's so goofy and loyal, and because Nomi I feel like would just be like an insane puppy that like I would just have struggled to train, and then I mean Stella would be easy to train because she's so like, so I feel like Stella or Garbage because I just really loved like dopey dogs, like the dogs that are just so goofy and like but lovable, like they just love their human so much.
So cute.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like I'm just biased because like I normally wouldn't say chonies because like I never was like a small dog person, but then during the pandemic we adopted a Chihuahua Spaniel who's really cute, and so I would probably say chonies. I don't know if any of you did. Marissa, sir, do either of you ever had dogs growing up or like have a dog in your life? I always tried to like. I think there was like one time where I like tried to do sort of a sketch of what Zoe's like, just like in the background, and be like, "Ooh, maybe she'll get into the show." But that never. I think something had to get cut, so I don't hold it against them. I mean, it's just like. But yeah, probably someone like Chonies. I think he's such a sweetheart.
He's cute.
I think I'm partial to either Garbage or Nomi. Like Nomi because she's just so cute and adorable, and Garbage just because it's like I think he really would live up to the whole man's best friend because how dedicated he was to his owner.
Yeah.
It's a good boy.
I think I remember Jeremiah at that premiere party said Nomi was named after a dog they had growing up.
Yeah.
I forgot what the actual name was, but like they kind of like messed with the name and created Nomi with it. Or maybe it was like, I couldn't remember how he explained how he did her name, but yeah, she's based on a dog they had growing up, which I thought was really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple other characters that were based on crew members' dogs, weren't there? I mean, I don't know who specifically, but I feel like there were a couple.
I think Monica's, or no, yeah, I think like as background characters. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people's dogs were background characters.
I know Monica pushed for the balloon dog so
yes.
much.
Oh, what's his name again? Yeah, such a funny name.
Yeah.
I forgot his name.
Dog.
Yeah, he has a whole history.
Yeah.
Monica has this whole like canon history.
I still laugh at this one gag when they were being re-evolved, like turned back into their normal states. And like he notices all the balloons that popped because he had popped them as a regular dog, and he's just crying.
Oh, no.
I was like, that poor dog.
I drew that part.
That's so good.
He did a great job because I was like, that poor dog. Like he just looked he was so broken and devastated.
Monica was just like, he's gotta like, it's like his child. His child just died.
Tragic.
Added on with this scream. Like, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I know like she was determined to like fit him in a bunch as much as she could, just somewhere in the background.
Right. So we're gonna wrap up with one last question. With how animation fandoms can be on social media, particularly to how they can treat crews of shows and movies, is there anything you want to say to like any of those naysayers?
What are they saying, Nate? What are the Sorry, go on.
Oh, I appreciate the passion and just wanting better for the like animated content. I do feel though a lot of that like is misguided towards people like that don't have the power, like crew. It's just like they think we have so much power when like there's just like 3 or 4 levels above us that like control more, like, and it's just kind of like you gotta remember too, like we're human. This is a job. We're just trying to do our job and just like feed our family or our fur babies or pay for weddings.
Yeah.
And like, if you catch more flies with honey than, like if you want to make change, the last thing you want to do is attack people. But I know there's some people that they just want to do it because they want the likes and the retweets and they just want to keep stirring up drama. Like, and I don't understand that, but it's just, I just block them. So you can celebrate your block if I block you. I hope I made you happy. If I made you happy doing that, I'm more than willing to block you.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk. Like once Dogs in Space came out, I was on Twitter all the time looking for reactions and being like, oh, who said what? And it got like really good feedback. But, you'd come across the odd tweet and be like, I wasn't really a fan of the show. And that's fine. It's when people are like, the animators were lazy. Like, what is the story writing? Like, and it's, it's like Sarah said, you got to realize this is a job and people are working on it and we don't have a say in everything, And, I think even for me, I can look, there are like terrible animated things out there, but even when I look at it, I'm like, someone worked on this and probably had passion and like really wanted to make something meaningful. And it kind of goes back to like this quote from Ratatouille where Anton Ego says, the average piece of junk is probably more meaningful than the person designating it. So, and I think that's kind of what I've thought this whole time looking at Twitter discourse and social media discourse. It's like, constructive feedback is one thing, but, you can't just dump on someone because it just didn't end up being the perfect product that you wanted. It's a job and, we got to work and we got to get rent.
It's also funny how it's so easy to come into something that's a final product or close to final and go like, I know exactly what would have made this better. And it's like,
Right.
like this was years of like development. It's very easy to come in at that point to say like, yeah, you probably should have done this. It would have been so easy. Like, but you know, I try to keep that in mind when I give my own critiques, right? Like, so yeah, just be constructive. And after that point, like, I just have to use that phrase that I've learned of the Gen Z phrase, just go outside and touch grass. Like, just calm down. Go. It's so beautiful outside. Why are you doing this? What is this gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think?
And if you want to work in the industry, because I do see a lot of like aspiring animators, and they're the ones that are like hopping on these like chains of like just attacking people. Like my friend got attacked like last year, which it was infuriating because I didn't know what to do, because I was like, I don't want to respond and make things worse. And like, it's just, it was just, they tried to go after her job, which is disgusting. But luckily, like, you know, the studios know of like the internet culture, so they're like, we're adults, so yeah, no. But it's just I don't know, it's just, you want to work in animation, you don't want to anger or like already form like bad relationships before you even step in, because the relationship is what you need to get in. You need to like, you know, meet people and make friends, and like, it's literally how you get the foot in the door, because they refer you, they, you know, you introduce you to people you might not have ever met, like, and to burn that bridge before you even get to it, it's kind of not really a smart, you know, job venture. And you know, if you're, you know, the passion and everything, it's just like, make your own thing and put it online. And you know, if you want that, make it, because like, there's those of us in the industry that probably have similar issues like they do, and they're making their own stuff, because it's just how they, if they can't get it through the studio, they're going to make it themselves. So it's, you don't need the studio to make your project. Look at Vivian Madrino. I mean, she's got Has-Been Hotel, she's got
Hell of a Boss.
Yeah, thank you. I almost messed that up. I almost said Hell's Kitchen. But that's Gordon Ramsay. Look at Gordon Ramsay. Look at all the shows he has.
I watched all of them during the pandemic. I binged them. I'm horrible.
Oh my god. I oddly found his yelling soothing. I don't know why.
You know, no.
Like,
I know what it is. I figured this out. I'm like, why am I watching this like horrible reality TV? It's because during this time, you just want someone to hold people accountable, and he does. Like, and it feels so good.
Yeah. Anyway, you're just like, darn it, Julie, why didn't you cook that steak properly? Get him, Gordon. Yeah. Get him.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Yeah. An idiot
burn
sandwich.
Ice cream.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
I was like, yeah, how did you burn ice cream? Like, that's a conundrum.
I'm quite talented to do that, really.
Exactly. Yeah. I think all that is like great things in terms of like what it is with all these people who like, because it is true, like, it's great you have the passion, but at the same time it's like, you got to remember these are just human beings, you know, making something. They're like, and to quote my friend again, it's like, nobody wants to make a bad product. Like, nobody in this industry is like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the worst thing. That's not a thing. Nobody's like rubbing their hands together trying to like screw anybody over.
There's no like conspiracy of like, it's just, it's
Let's
just
anger as many Twitter people as possible.
Yeah.
It's honestly a thing, and that's why like I'm always sometimes on, like, I'm just on the move attacking these people when they get crazy, because it's like, calm down, people. Like, it's just a drawing. Why are you mad? You have the option to just not turn it on.
Yeah.
like you could just go find something else. You could be putting more time into something you actually like. There's no reason to be mad about a show you just don't personally like. You don't need to try to act like it's objectively bad.
Yeah,
like,
you can just turn it off.
It's subjective. Exactly.
Yeah, I know. There's stuff that I'm like, I'm not interested in that, but I don't go on Twitter and be like, I'm not interested in your show. How dare you?
Right.
This was not made for me.
Yeah.
There's just no reason to pretend like, oh, these people like kicked your dog and slapped your mother, because that didn't happen. Like they just made a cartoon you don't really care for. That's all that happened. Like, treat people with respect. I think that's something that somehow a lot of people just forgot about, especially in the pandemic, since we're online all the time. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to basic respect. If you you wouldn't want people treating you like this, so why treat others like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so much policing on Twitter. It's just kind of like, it's like, you're 13. You shouldn't even be on Twitter right now.
Right.
No, just go outside, experience things to make your own show someday. Based off of that.
If you have a dog, pet it, because you might be sending it to space one day to go find a new planet. That's be the starter planet.
And pick up your trash. Don't litter. Okay.
Yeah. Don't invest in NFTs or crypto.
Oh my god. Oh my god, don't do that.
Like, we can cut that out. So
forget that. Like, they need to know no more NFTs. Screw NFTs. Stop doing it.
Yeah, buy some work.
Because otherwise Dogs in Space becomes a reality, people.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Just buy some actual artwork from your favorite artists. They'll appreciate that.
Let's make it like at least you have real artwork at that point. You bought real something that's there. Yeah. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been listening to so many like cryptocurrency scams on YouTube, and I'm like, oh god.
But okay. With that, I want to thank you all so much for doing this. And this has been a very fun and even enlightening experience. It's just been a great time. I'm so glad you all came on to, talk your talk and say your piece on, be able to work on this great show, Dogs in Space, which is on Netflix right now. You can go see season 1 right now. So with that, want to give one last sign off for who all you are.
Well, thanks, man, for having us on. It was really nice talking to you. I'm Sarah. I'm a storyboard artist. Please don't attack me on Twitter. I promise.
Well, deal with me if that happens.
I mostly retweet ducks and cats anyway, so. But yeah, it's animation's fun, and I'm awkward. Bye.
Perfect.
I'm Tom. I am a revisionist storyboard artist, and don't attack me on Twitter either. You can tag me on MySpace. That's fine. I don't use it anymore. I actually went to check to see if my account was still active the other day, and it's just a broken JPEG, the whole page. So that was a weird tangent to go off on during the sign off, but yeah, that's me. Yeah.
And I'm. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Oh, you're good. I'm Marissa. I'm a storyboard artist and revisionist, and this was super fun. I even learned a lot. We haven't talked in a while, so this was really great, and I appreciate you asking us on. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, I really appreciate you all coming on, and with that, I want to say thank you all for tuning in, and always remember, it's just a thought. The opinions expressed in this are of the individual guest and only of the individual guests and not of their employers. Thank you.